The sun was slowly dipping behind the tall buildings of the city, painting the streets with long shadows and warm light. A young boy walked steadily down the busy road, his worn shoes tapping softly on the pavement. He had just finished his shift at the small cafe where he worked, his hands still faintly smelling of coffee and dough. Even though his day had been long and tiring, he kept his head high, thinking about the small goals he had set for himself, saving a little money, finishing school, and one day making life easier for his family. The streets were bustling with people, cars honking and drivers impatient to get home. Among the stream of vehicles, a sleek, shiny car caught his eye. Its bright paint reflected the fading sunlight, making it glow like it had a light of its own. He noticed a young woman inside looking frustrated and tense. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, and she kept checking her phone as if she were hoping for someone to come quickly and help her. Curious, the boy slowed his pace and watched for a moment. Then he noticed what had caused her distress. One of her tires was flat, completely deflated, making the car lean awkwardly to one side. She had no spare visible, and from the way she was moving, it was clear she had no idea how to fix it herself. Drivers swerved around her, some honking impatiently, others too busy to even glance her way. The boy felt a sudden tug in his chest. He knew he couldn't just walk past. Even though he didn't know her, even though she might look rich and untouchable, he felt he had to help. He approached carefully, trying not to startle her. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Do you need some help with your tire?" She looked up, surprise flashing across her face. Her initial reaction was hesitation, probably because of the age difference and the fact that he was a stranger, but her eyes softened as she realized he wasn't asking for anything in return. Not a tip, not a favor, nothing. I don't know much about cars," she admitted, her voice a little shaky. "I'm not sure what to do." He smiled gently. "That's okay. I can help. Do you have a jack and a spare?" She shook her head, looking even more worried. "I think I have a jack, but I don't even know if the spare is in good condition." The boy didn't hesitate. "Let's check together. We'll figure it out." He knelt by the flat tire, his fingers moving confidently as he examined the tools in the car. The woman watched him closely, her surprise turning into admiration. He worked quietly with patience and focus, checking the spare, loosening the nuts and positioning the jack. Every move he made was careful, precise, and deliberate. There was a sense of calm in his actions, and she found herself relaxing for the first time since the tire went flat. "You really know what you're doing," she said, trying to hide a smile. "I didn't expect someone my age to be this capable." He chuckled softly, wiping a small bead of sweat from his forehead. "I've had to learn. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Life teaches you fast when you want to get by." As he worked, a few passers-by glanced at the scene, some shaking their heads at the unusual pairing, a young boy helping a young woman with a luxury car. But the boy didn't notice or care. He was focused entirely on the task, making sure the tire was secure and safe for her to drive again. She couldn't help but watch him, noticing the quiet determination in his eyes, the way he handled the situation with such ease. It was different from anyone she had ever met. She had money, influence, and connections, but she realized that none of those could have helped her in that moment. He had, finally, after what seemed like a long but smooth effort, the tire was changed. He stood up, brushing his hands against his worn jeans. "All done," he said. "You should be good to go. Just drive slowly for a bit and get the tire checked when you can." The woman smiled, relief washing over her. "Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done without you." She reached into her bag as if to offer him something. "Please take this for your help." He shook his head firmly. "No need, I'm just glad you're okay. That's enough for me." She hesitated for a moment, clearly impressed by his refusal. Most people she met in her life would have expected a tip, a favor, or some acknowledgement. But not him. He was genuine, kind, and selfless. "You're remarkable," she said quietly, almost to herself. He smiled, a little embarrassed by the compliment. "I just do what I can. Everyone deserves help sometimes." She nodded, feeling a strange connection she couldn't quite explain. There was something pure and real about him, something that made her feel at ease even in the middle of a stressful day. She started the car slowly, watching him step aside to let her pass. As she drove, she found herself glancing back, hoping to catch one more glimpse of him. He waved politely and she waved back, a smile lingering on both their faces. The boy continued on his way home, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and curiosity. He wondered about her life, about the world she came from, so different from his own. He knew wealth could buy comfort and luxury, but it could never buy the quiet strength and kindness he had witnessed in her smile just now. He thought about the fleeting moment they had shared, and how unusual it was for a person like him to have an impact on someone like her. Meanwhile, she drove slowly through the city streets thinking about him too. She had met countless people, interacted with so many faces in her life, but there was something about him that made her heart feel lighter. He hadn't judged her, hadn't been impressed by her wealth, hadn't acted differently because of her status. He had simply helped. That small act of kindness left a bigger impression than any lavish gift or gesture she had ever received. As the evening grew darker, the city lights began to flicker on, illuminating the streets with a soft glow. The boy walked through the crowd unnoticed by most, yet somehow feeling significant. He didn't realize it yet, but this small encounter was the beginning of something much bigger than either of them could have imagined. Two lives from entirely different worlds had touched for a moment, and that moment would stay with them both in ways they hadn't yet discovered. The boy thought about his own family, about his dreams, about how hard he had worked just to survive and get a little ahead. Helping her hadn't been about recognition or reward. It had simply felt right. And in that simplicity, there was a quiet power, a power to change not just her day, but maybe even her perspective on life. For her part, she couldn't shake the feeling of admiration and curiosity. She kept thinking about his calm confidence, his humility, and the genuine care he had shown. She realized that no amount of money or influence could have brought her that feeling. In a world full of appearances, he had been real, and that reality was unexpectedly comforting and magnetic. As the night settled over the city, both of them went their separate ways, carrying the memory of the encounter with them. Neither could predict what the future would hold, but a quiet thread had been woven between their lives, one of respect, kindness, and unspoken curiosity. It was the kind of connection that could grow, change, and perhaps even transform the course of both their lives. And so, the young boy walked home under the streetlights, tired but with a sense of pride. The young woman drove on, her mind replaying the encounter, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. That day, a simple act of help had sparked something neither of them fully understood yet, but both would remember forever. The world had felt a little smaller, a little kinder, and for a brief moment, two strangers had found a bridge between their very different lives. The day after their chance encounter, the young boy went about his routine, but he found it hard to focus on anything else. He kept replaying the memory of helping the young woman with her flat tire. Her surprised expression, the warmth in her voice when she thanked him, and the way she had looked at him with genuine appreciation kept lingering in his mind. He had seen people express gratitude before, of course, but something about her reaction felt different, almost personal, as if she truly recognized his effort and sincerity. At the same time, the young woman could not stop thinking about him either. Even with her busy life and constant demands, she kept recalling the boy's calmness and confidence. His humility had struck her more than his skill with the car. She was used to people flattering her, trying to impress her or seeking something in return. But he hadn't. He had simply helped, expecting nothing. The thought made her smile without realizing it. Their worlds were so different, yet the memory of that small interaction had built a subtle bridge. She found herself watching for him, hoping in some small part to encounter him again. She wondered who he really was, what his life was like, and why he seemed so different from everyone she had ever met. Meanwhile, the boy walking to the cafe where he worked kept imagining what her life must be like. He thought about her luxury car, her confident demeanor, and her calm way of handling things even under pressure. It fascinated him, but he reminded himself not to let his imagination get too carried away. She was from a world far beyond his reach, but he couldn't deny the curiosity and admiration he felt for her. A week passed and life continued as usual. He worked long hours at the cafe, serving customers and cleaning tables while she attended meetings, events, and social gatherings. Both were busy, yet the encounter lingered in their minds. Small coincidences began to play a role. She noticed him again while driving past the cafe where he worked. For a brief moment, their eyes met through the window, and a wave of recognition and surprise passed between them. She smiled and waved, and he returned the gesture, feeling a strange sense of connection that he couldn't explain. Later that day, the boy's friend teased him, noticing his distracted mood. "You keep daydreaming," his friend said. "What's going on? Someone special?" The boy laughed, shaking his head but didn't deny it. "Maybe," he said softly, knowing he couldn't explain it fully. He wasn't sure exactly what it was, only that something about the young woman had left a mark on him. For the woman, the thought of him was accompanied by a quiet curiosity. She wondered about his dreams, his life, and his thoughts. He was so young, yet he carried himself with a maturity that fascinated her. She had met many people who tried to impress her, but he impressed her in a way that didn't involve money or status. He had impressed her with his character, his kindness, and his sincerity. Fate, however, seemed determined to bring them together again. One afternoon, she had some free time between appointments and decided to stop by the local park to enjoy the quiet. At the same time, the boy had finished his shift early and decided to take a short walk to clear his mind. By chance, they both ended up near the same bench by the fountain. The young woman was the first to notice him, and her heart skipped a beat. She felt an unexpected nervousness she hadn't felt before. The boy, seeing her, felt a mixture of surprise and excitement. He wasn't sure if she would remember him, but when their eyes met, he realized she did. She approached him cautiously, a gentle smile on her face. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he replied, his voice steady but betraying a hint of curiosity. For a moment, neither spoke. They just looked at each other, feeling the quiet comfort of recognition. Finally, she broke the silence. "I was surprised when you helped me the other day. I didn't expect someone like you to come over." "I guess I didn't know what to expect," he chuckled, scratching the back of his neck. "I just wanted to help. You looked like you needed it. That's all." She nodded, her eyes searching his. "You're different from anyone I've ever met. Most people only care about what they can get from you. But you just helped." It was simple, but it meant a lot. He felt a warmth in his chest at her words. No one had ever put it that way before. "I suppose everyone deserves a little help now and then," he said. "It's not about getting anything back." They sat on the bench, talking quietly as the sun began to set. Their conversation was natural, flowing from one topic to another. He told her about his work at the cafe, about his family, and about the small dreams he had for his future. She listened intently, asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than polite curiosity. In turn, she shared a little about her life, the pressures she faced, and the responsibilities that came with her wealth. It wasn't about bragging or impressing. It was about being honest and real with someone who actually seemed to understand. As the evening progressed, the connection between them grew stronger. They laughed at small jokes, exchanged thoughtful insights, and listened with attention and respect. There was an ease between them, a comfort in simply being present with one another. The boy found himself inspired by her intelligence and confidence, while she felt a surprising sense of calm and joy in his presence. They walked through the park together, sharing stories about their childhoods, the struggles they had faced, and the moments that had shaped them. He admired her resilience and her ability to handle challenges with grace, while she admired his patience, humility, and the way he cared about others. The differences in their lives didn't feel like obstacles. Instead, they made the conversation richer and more meaningful. As the park lights flickered on, casting a warm glow around them, they found themselves sitting again on a bench, not ready to part ways just yet. The boy realized that he looked forward to these moments, to the simplicity of talking to someone who saw him for who he truly was. The young woman realized that she had found something she hadn't known she was missing, a genuine connection without judgment, without expectation, without pretense. Finally, as the night grew darker, they stood to leave. She thanked him for the time they had spent together, and he smiled, feeling a quiet happiness. "I hope we meet again," she said softly. "I hope so too," he replied, feeling the same hope stirring inside him. They parted ways, walking in opposite directions, but both carried the feeling of warmth and curiosity that had begun to blossom. Neither of them knew where this connection would lead, but both felt that it was something special, something worth exploring. That night, the boy lay in bed thinking about the young woman, replaying their conversations in her kind eyes, feeling a sense of possibility he had never felt before. She, in her luxury apartment, gazed out at the city lights, remembering his calm demeanor, his gentle smile, and the way he had made her feel like more than just a person with wealth and status. The encounter had started with a simple act of kindness, but it had grown into something much more, a quiet, budding connection that hinted at deeper understanding and perhaps even love. Both of them knew that life was unpredictable and that their worlds were very different. But for the first time in a long while, they felt that maybe, just maybe, the differences could be bridged by honesty, respect, and care. As the city slept around them, two lives were quietly beginning to intertwine. The boy and the young woman had found each other in the most unexpected way, and though neither knew the full story yet, they both sensed that this was the start of something meaningful. Something that could change them, challenge them, and ultimately bring them closer in ways neither could have imagined. It had been a few weeks since their conversation in the park, yet the memory lingered vividly in both of their minds. The boy went about his life working at the cafe, helping his family when he could, and attending school. Yet every time he closed his eyes, he could see her smile, hear her voice, and remember the way her eyes seemed to search for sincerity in people. He found himself hoping for another encounter, wondering if life would give them another chance. The young woman, on her part, had not stopped thinking about him either. In her busy schedule filled with meetings, social events, and endless responsibilities, she found herself daydreaming about the boy who had so quietly made a mark on her life. She had seen many people, made countless connections, but none had left such a real impression. There was something about his presence, his humility, and his kindness that made her long to know him better. One bright afternoon, she decided to take a walk in a neighborhood she often drove past but never explored on foot. She wanted a break from her routine, a moment of simplicity, and perhaps a chance encounter with the unexpected. She wandered down the streets, enjoying the quiet rhythm of people going about their daily lives. The air was filled with the scent of fresh bread from a nearby bakery, and the sounds of children playing in a small park added life to the street. By coincidence, the boy had chosen the same neighborhood to deliver some food from the cafe where he worked to a customer. He carried the small bag carefully, balancing it as he navigated the sidewalk. Neither of them noticed the other at first, but then their eyes met. Time seemed to slow for a moment. The boy's heart raced slightly, and he could feel a warmth spreading in his chest. She looked just as surprised, her eyes widening, followed by a small smile. "Hi," she said, walking toward him cautiously. "Hi," he replied, keeping his voice calm, though inside he felt excitement. They stood there for a few moments, taking in the unexpected reunion. She looked around, noticing the streets he navigated daily, the shops and the modest homes. For her, it was a world so different from the luxury she was accustomed to, yet seeing him here made her feel connected, like she was witnessing a part of his life that was genuine and unfiltered. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, her voice carrying a hint of amusement. "Neither did I," he replied. "I'm just making a delivery." "I didn't know you walked around here," she smiled, intrigued. "Sometimes I like to explore on foot. It feels different. More real, I guess." He nodded, understanding her better than she expected. "It does. You notice things you wouldn't see from a car." The conversation flowed naturally as they walked together through the neighborhood. She asked about his work at the cafe, and he explained his routine, the challenges he faced, and the satisfaction of earning a small living honestly. She listened intently, asking questions that were thoughtful and genuine. Unlike other people in her life, she wasn't trying to impress or show off. She was simply curious, interested in his life and his thoughts. As they continued walking, he showed her a small park where he often spent time when he had a moment to himself. They sat on a bench, the warm afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grass. They talked about dreams, ambitions, and the little joys of life. The boy shared stories about his family, his struggles, and the small victories that made him proud. She in turn talked about her work, the pressures she faced, and her desire to find meaning beyond wealth. He was impressed by her intelligence and the way she handled her responsibilities. She was curious about his resilience and the quiet strength he carried despite the hardships he faced. They laughed at small jokes, shared thoughts on books and movies, and even discussed simple things like favorite foods and places to visit. The conversation was effortless, comfortable, and filled with moments of genuine connection. During their walk, they passed a small cafe that reminded him of his own workplace. He suggested they stop for a drink, and she agreed. They sat at a corner table, enjoying simple refreshments, and continued talking. The woman realized that being with him didn't require any pretense. She didn't need to impress him, and he didn't need to prove anything. There was an honesty in their interaction that felt refreshing. As the afternoon turned into evening, the streets grew quieter, and the warm glow of the setting sun added a golden hue to everything around them. They found themselves walking along a narrow street lined with small shops and streetlights beginning to flicker on. The boy noticed a small bookstore and suggested they peek inside. She agreed, curious to see the books and the quiet atmosphere. Inside, they wandered among the shelves, discussing favorite authors and genres. She was surprised by his knowledge and his passion for reading, and he was impressed by her insight and curiosity. The small moments, browsing books together, sharing recommendations, and exchanging thoughts, created a sense of intimacy neither had expected. It was as if the world outside had disappeared, leaving only the two of them in a shared, quiet bubble of connection. After leaving the bookstore, they continued their walk. She asked him more personal questions, wanting to understand his dreams and fears. He spoke honestly, sharing his hopes for a better life, his desire to support his family and his ambition to grow beyond the small limitations of his current circumstances. She listened with genuine interest, offering encouragement and insight, showing a side of herself that few people saw. The boy realized that he felt comfortable sharing things with her that he rarely shared with anyone else. There was no judgment, no expectation, only understanding. She, too, felt a growing admiration for him. His honesty, humility, and kindness were qualities she found increasingly rare in her social circle. Being around him made her feel grounded, connected, and appreciated for who she was, not for her wealth or status. As the evening deepened, they stopped at a small fountain in a quiet square. The water sparkled under the light, creating a peaceful atmosphere. They sat on the edge talking about memories from childhood, the challenges they had faced, and the small moments that had shaped them. The conversation was deep yet light, filled with laughter, thoughtful reflections, and a sense of shared understanding. The young woman realized that she had developed a feeling she hadn't expected. It wasn't just curiosity or admiration. It was something deeper, a growing affection that made her heart beat faster when he smiled or laughed. She noticed the way he listened attentively, the way he made her feel valued, and the quiet confidence he carried without arrogance. It was a combination that left her feeling both inspired and comforted. For the boy, the feeling was similar. He found himself drawn to her intelligence, warmth, and openness. She treated him as an equal, respected his thoughts, and seemed genuinely interested in his life. The differences in their worlds, her wealth, his modest background, didn't feel like barriers. Instead, they added layers to their connection, making it richer and more meaningful. As the night approached, they realized it was time to part ways. Neither wanted the evening to end, but both knew they would carry the memory of it with them. They walked to the edge of the square, hesitating for a moment before saying goodbye. "I'm glad we met again," she said softly, her voice carrying a mix of happiness and longing. "Me too," he replied, feeling the same way. "I hope this isn't the last time." They exchanged smiles, a silent promise that they would find each other again. As they walked in opposite directions, both felt a sense of warmth and anticipation. The day had started as a chance encounter, but had grown into a meaningful connection neither could ignore. Later that night, the boy reflected on the day's events while lying in bed. He thought about her laughter, her questions, and the way she had looked at him with genuine interest. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced before, a mix of admiration, respect, and something tender that made his heart flutter. He realized that he wanted to know her better, to understand her world, and to share his own in return. The young woman in her apartment looked out at the city lights, replaying the moments they had shared. She thought about his sincerity, his humility, and the quiet strength he carried. She felt a growing connection that went beyond the superficial encounters she was used to. It was real, honest, and deeply moving. This meeting had changed something in both of them. It had taken the simple act of helping a flat tire and transformed it into a meaningful, ongoing connection. They both knew that the path ahead might be complicated due to their different worlds, but neither could deny the bond that was forming. As they drifted to sleep, each carried a sense of hope and curiosity about the future. The boy wondered if she would appear in his life again, while she hoped he would. Both understood that this was more than a fleeting encounter. It was the beginning of a journey, one that might lead to friendship, understanding, and perhaps even love. In the quiet of the night, they both smiled, knowing that something special had begun, something neither would forget. The days that followed their second meeting were filled with quiet anticipation. Both the boy and the young woman found themselves thinking about each other constantly. Every small interaction they had left a lingering warmth, a feeling that was hard to describe. It was not just curiosity, it was something more personal, a sense of connection that neither of them had expected from their very first encounter with a flat tire. However, as their growing closeness became more apparent, challenges started to arise. The young woman noticed subtle changes in the reactions of her friends and acquaintances. Some questioned her interest in someone so much younger and from a different social background. Their comments were polite on the surface but carried undertones of skepticism and judgment. She tried to brush them off, focusing instead on the genuine connection she felt with the boy. But the doubts planted by others occasionally crept into her mind. The boy, too, felt the pressure in his own way. He knew that society might judge the connection he was forming. People in his community were aware of the gap between him and the young woman. Whispers and raised eyebrows followed him more than once when he spoke about her. While he was proud of the bond they were forming, he worried about whether it was possible for someone like him to truly fit into her world. Despite these concerns, he refused to let judgment dictate his actions. One afternoon, they met again at a small community library. It had become a routine of sorts to meet in places that felt neutral and comfortable for both of them. As they walked together toward the library, the young woman spoke about the subtle pressure she had been feeling from her social circle. "People don't understand us," she said softly. "They think I shouldn't spend time with you because our worlds are so different." "It can get frustrating." The boy nodded, understanding her worry. "I know people might talk, but I don't care what they think. I care about you, and that's what matters to me." Her expression softened, and she reached for his hand, a simple gesture filled with trust and reassurance. "Thank you. That means a lot to me. I feel the same way, but it's hard sometimes to ignore what everyone else expects." Inside the library, they found a quiet corner, away from the occasional passerby. They sat close to each other, their shoulders brushing lightly. The boy shared more about his life, about the small victories he cherished and the struggles he faced daily. He spoke about his family, the sacrifices they made, and the hopes he had for a better future. She listened with complete attention, absorbing every word, asking gentle questions that encouraged him to open up further. In turn, she revealed parts of her life that she rarely shared. She spoke of the loneliness that sometimes came with wealth, the pressure to maintain appearances, and the moments when she felt disconnected from people who seemed to care only about her status. The boy listened, offering understanding without judgment, providing a sense of comfort she hadn't realized she needed. Their conversations gradually shifted toward dreams and aspirations. He spoke about wanting to continue his education, perhaps start a small business and create opportunities for his family. She shared her ambitions beyond material success, her desire to make a meaningful impact, and her hope to find genuine relationships in a world full of superficial interactions. Both realized that despite their differences, they were aligned in seeking authenticity, kindness, and personal growth. As the afternoon turned into evening, they left the library and walked through the streets, talking about small things, laughing quietly, and sharing stories from their past. Their interactions were natural, and the comfort between them grew stronger with each moment. They had learned to value each other's presence, respect each other's experiences, and cherish the simplicity of shared moments. However, life had its tests. One evening, the young woman received a call from a friend who questioned her growing connection with the boy. "Are you sure this is wise?" the friend asked. "People will talk, and it might not be easy. You know, his background is so different from yours." She listened quietly, feeling a twinge of doubt. But then she thought of the boy, the way he had treated her, the kindness he had shown, and the genuine connection they shared. She realized that none of that could be measured by wealth or social standing. Taking a deep breath, she replied, "I appreciate your concern, but I trust him. That's what matters." The boy, meanwhile, faced subtle criticism from his community. Some questioned his intentions, wondering why he spent time with someone so different from him. He felt the sting of judgment, but also a quiet resolve. He believed in their bond, in the respect and affection they had developed. His confidence in their connection gave him the strength to continue. knowing that genuine relationships were rare and worth protecting. One weekend, they spent the day together volunteering at a local community center. It was a neutral space where they could interact without judgment, contributing to something larger than themselves. They painted walls, arranged books, and helped organize small activities for children. The work was hard but fulfilling, and their teamwork strengthened their bond. They laughed over small mishaps, encouraged each other, and shared quiet moments of reflection. The experience showed them the value of collaboration, empathy, and understanding. As the day ended, they sat on the steps outside the center, exhausted but happy. The young woman looked at him and said, "I like seeing this side of you, the part that cares so much, that gives without expecting anything in return. It's inspiring." He smiled, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "I think I'm learning a lot from you, too. You've taught me that no matter how different someone's life is from yours, genuine connection is possible." They walked home slowly, the evening air cool against their skin. The city lights flickered on, casting a warm glow over the streets. Both felt a sense of growth within themselves, recognizing that their connection was teaching them patience, understanding, and resilience. The challenges they faced were real, but they were learning to navigate them together, strengthening their bond with each shared experience. As weeks passed, their relationship deepened further. They shared more personal stories, dreams, and fears. The young woman introduced him to simple pleasures from her life that didn't involve luxury: quiet walks, reading together, and exploring hidden parts of the city. The boy in turn shared his world, his family, the cafe, and the small neighborhood where he grew up. Each moment of exchange added layers to their understanding and respect for one another. They began to recognize the subtle ways in which they influenced each other's growth. The boy became more confident, more willing to express his thoughts and feelings, inspired by her belief in him. The young woman learned to trust, to lower her walls, and to value people for who they truly were rather than their social standing. Both experienced personal growth, realizing that love and connection were not determined by wealth or background but by character, understanding, and shared values. One evening, as they sat together on a quiet bench, the young woman looked at him thoughtfully. "We faced some challenges," she said softly, "but I feel like every difficulty has brought us closer. It hasn't been easy, but I'm glad we're doing this together." He nodded, squeezing her hand gently. "I feel the same. Life isn't always simple, but I think the bond we have is worth every challenge. I trust us." The moment was quiet, filled with unspoken understanding and affection. Neither needed grand gestures or extravagant words. Their connection was built on honesty, respect, and the small, consistent acts of care and attention they gave each other. It was a bond that transcended the judgments of others, one that grew stronger with each shared experience and each moment of mutual support. As the night settled over the city, both reflected on the journey they had undertaken together. What had started as a chance encounter with a flat tire had evolved into a meaningful relationship filled with growth, learning, and understanding. They knew challenges would continue to arise, but they also knew that together, they could face them with patience, trust, and love. Walking home, the boy felt a quiet sense of pride and hope. He had found someone who valued him for who he was, someone who believed in him and inspired him to grow. The young woman felt a deep sense of gratitude and warmth, realizing that in the boy, she had discovered a rare connection that transcended wealth, status, and societal expectations. As they parted for the evening, there was a shared understanding that their journey was far from over. The bond they had nurtured through challenges, growth, and shared experiences had become a foundation for something lasting. Both carried a sense of hope, curiosity, and affection, knowing that despite the obstacles, they were building something real, meaningful, and worth cherishing. The city was bathed in the soft glow of early evening as the boy and the young woman met once again. They had grown closer over the weeks, and every shared moment had strengthened the connection that had begun with a simple act of kindness. This meeting felt different, more intentional, as if both had been waiting for it. Neither spoke at first, just enjoying the presence of the other, the comfort of being together without needing to fill the silence. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet, but filled with emotion. "I've been thinking a lot about us lately, about everything we've shared, everything we've learned from each other. I realize that I care about you more than I expected." He looked at her, His eyes steady, heart beating faster, but his voice calm. I feel the same. I felt it for some time now, but I wasn't sure if I should say it. I didn't want to rush things or make you uncomfortable. She smiled, a mixture of relief and warmth spreading through her. You don't need to worry about that. I felt it too, and I think it's time we acknowledge it. They walked together along the quiet streets, talking about how their feelings had grown naturally. The boy admitted that he had never expected to feel such a connection with someone so different from him. The young woman confessed that she had never imagined being drawn to someone outside her world. Yet here she was, feeling something real, something genuine that money and status could never buy. As they continued walking, they talked about their hopes for the future. He shared his dreams of furthering his education, building a life where he could support his family, and growing into the person he wanted to become. She shared her desire to live authentically, to make meaningful choices, and to be with someone who truly understood her. Both realized that their lives, though different, could intersect in meaningful ways. Their connection was no longer just about fascination. It was about mutual support, shared values, and genuine affection. They found a small park bench, their favorite spot from previous meetings. Sitting side by side, they watched the city lights begin to flicker on, reflecting in the calm water of the nearby fountain. The boy reached out, gently taking her hand in his. She didn't pull away. Instead, she held it, feeling the strength and warmth that had become so familiar and comforting. I want us to be honest with each other, he said softly. No secrets, no pretenses. I want us to face whatever comes together as equals, supporting each other. She nodded, her eyes glistening. I want that too. I've never had someone make me feel this way before. You make me feel seen, appreciated, and understood. It's more than I ever expected. The boy smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. You inspire me too. You've shown me that life can be bigger, brighter, and more meaningful if you have someone who believes in you. In the days that followed, their bond deepened even further. They continued to meet in neutral spaces, sharing experiences that brought them closer. They explored the city together, discovered hidden places, and laughed over small, everyday moments. Every shared activity, no matter how simple, strengthened their understanding and respect for each other. They faced challenges, of course. Friends and family occasionally questioned their connection, highlighting the differences in their backgrounds and lives. But these moments, rather than creating distance, only made their bond stronger. They learned to communicate openly, to trust each other's intentions, and to focus on the genuine affection that had grown between them. Each challenge became an opportunity to reinforce their commitment and understanding. One evening, they decided to volunteer together at a local community project, a continuation of their shared experience from previous weeks. They painted walls, organized materials, and helped children with small activities. The work was demanding, but it offered them a chance to collaborate, laugh, and support each other. The young woman noticed how naturally he led and encouraged others, his humility and patience earning the respect of everyone around them.